You're listening to
Sound.
Insightful.
Bible teaching
for a
Meaningful.
For a meaningful Christian walk.
So tonight we're going to continue this kind of series we've been having. We're reviewing the messages that we covered in the recent college training. And the title of the college training was
As in the days of Noah.
So we're talking about Noah and his days. But these are prefigure, a reflection, something like that, of the days we're in today. In the days of Noah, it was kind of a godless culture for the most part. That doesn't mean it was necessarily evil. You know, you meet a lot of, we should never have the concept like, oh, you're an atheist, therefore you're completely sinful and awful and bad. Some of them are pretty nice people.
Yeah.
But they don't have God. So actually their niceness counts for nothing. Same with us. We can just be a nice person. But if we don't have God working in us, then it just doesn't count for anything. But God wanted to terminate that age. And he needed someone to do it for him. So Noah, at that age, he was the one who changed the age. He was one who found grace, found favor in the eyes of Jehovah. He was a righteous man. Then we saw last week, did we see what we saw last week? He received revelation. So he was the 10th in the line of godly men, starting with Noah, starting with Adam, ending with Noah. And each one, you know, they had probably some characteristic, at least following the Lord. And he inherited all of the godly ways of his forefathers. But none of them, that we can tell, did Jehovah ever say, you know, hey, Kenan, I want you to build me an ark. He didn't say that to Methuselah. Methuselah's father knew that when Methuselah died, the flood would come. That's what his name means. But they didn't have the revelation that Noah had. So Noah got the revelation, and then he acted on it. And he built the ark along with his family. There's no record of him receiving any other help. He may have received help. I mean, he's doing this for like 100 years. Maybe some of his neighbors were helpful. Maybe even some of his relatives, you know, because they're all in the same line. Maybe they'd have let's go have a little reunion over at Noah's place. And, oh, you're building that ark, we can help you a little bit. But none of them entered in. So they were not, you could put it this way, they might have helped, but they were not built into the ark. So in Noah's age, if you wanted to be one who was one with what God was doing, you need to be building the ark. If you weren't building the ark, in a sense, you weren't doing anything worthwhile. There could have been people doing a lot of good works. Maybe there were, I don't know. Nothing wrong with doing good works. But if all you're doing are good works and you're not building the ark, you're not up to date with the present revelation. You're not going to terminate the age, which is what God wanted to do. And you're not going to be able to enter into a life in resurrection, which we'll get into next week, which is a type of what we need to be doing today. I mean, the Lord wants to come back.
Yeah.
We know that. But he's not going to come back just for the sake of coming back. He's going to come back when the conditions are right. But the main thing that he has to come back for, and there's different facets of this, but it's ultimately the builded up church. You know all those Matthew 16:18, right?
We all do.
We all do. Okay, you know what it is? Anyway, this is where, prior to that, Peter got the revelation. Jesus says, who am I? Who do people say that I am? And, you know, maybe you're a prophet, you know, maybe you're John the Baptist. I never could figure that one out. It's like, how can you say he's John the Baptist? must be kind of confused. But anyway, some people apparently said that. And, you're a good man. But then he asked Peter, who do you say that I am? And to us, it's like, duh, it's a no-brainer. That was a big deal. Because Peter says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. You're the anointed one. You're the Messiah. And, Jesus said to him, you're blessed because you didn't get this from some common teaching. No one taught you that. This is a revelation from God.
Right.
So this is great. We need to see who Christ is. We need to see Christ. In this age, a lot of people, they don't know Christ. Even they say they know Christ. I'm not being judgmental. But, even among, so-called Christians, they don't recognize Christ even as in his divinity. They might think, he was a good man, he was a martyr, he was someone, we should follow his teachings. But they don't see who he really is. And they don't see who he really is to us. He's not just a teacher. And he's our Savior, but how does he save us? Of course, he died for us, but the real salvation is when we receive him as life, when we're born again. Not everyone knows him in that way. But that's just the start. Jesus said, you're blessed. But he says, Peter, I'm going to tell you something. He says, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. So in other words, everything evil is going to try to frustrate the building of the church. But I'm going to build this church. At Noah's time, he probably didn't tell Noah, I'm going to build the ark. But he said, you're going to build the ark. Today, the church is the reality and the fulfillment of Noah's ark. We've covered this before. I'm not going to get into, tonight we're talking about building the ark. And kind of in line with what we shared before. If you want to hear the actual messages that were shared, at some point they're going to be available. I promise. I'm not the one behind making them available. But they'll get posted somewhere. And if you want to hear what those brothers shared, it was really good, really good. But I'm not going to share the same thing that they shared. I'm not going to share something totally different. But there's a few points I want to emphasize. So even in the matter, I think in the weekly reading, there's a portion on, the dimensions of the ark. It's all very significant. And one point I like, it was covered on the outside and the inside with pitch. I don't know what they used for pitch back then. It's like tar or sap or something very waterproof, but also very sticky. I don't know how they lived inside of the ark, just like constantly. You ever go hiking out in the woods and there's like trees covered with sap and pine tar? You get that on your hands or whatever, you can't get it off. So it's really good for waterproofing your vessel. But it was on the outside and on the inside. This typifies, this is the only point I'm going to cover regarding the ark, but the blood of Christ. On the one hand, the blood of Christ is for God. So when he sees the blood, and we're under the blood, he doesn't see you as a sinner. He sees that Christ died for you. And so this satisfies God's righteousness. But if you were in that boat, it's like, hey, Japheth, remember the day I told you to, get the southern part of the, the back end of the ark? Did you remember to do that? Are we going to spring a leak? And you're just kind of going on faith. It's like, is it really covered? Well, they covered on the inside too. And that's for us. So on one hand, God sees the blood, and that satisfies his righteous requirement. For us, we need to see the blood also. So we can realize that the righteous requirement of God has been satisfied, and we can have a clear conscience. But like I say, all the dimensions, 3 stories, the window, it's very significant. You can get into that sometime, but I'm not going to talk about that tonight. But I want to talk about if we say, Jesus said, I will build my church. Old Testament, he said, Noah build the ark. So it's like, well, God is going to build the church, but Noah built the ark. Actually, it's the same. The church is being built through the believers. God does not just miraculously do something. But if we want to build the ark, and Noah built the ark, he followed a design. And he did it in a very precise way, I'm sure. I don't know what kind of tools they had back then, but, and they filled with all the animals. Ultimately, it just saved humanity. And it turned the age. So we want to build the church. And we know the church never refers to a building, a physical building. This is something that people brought in. That building with the steeple and a cross, that's a church. No, that's a building. That's a building with a steeple and a cross. That is not the church. Don't be confused. If anyone asks me, where is your church? A lot of times they're thinking, where's the building, right? And so, depending where I lived, I'd say, well, we have a building at such and such a time. I don't want to argue with them, make them feel bad, but that's not the church. The church is composed of the believers. But the believers need to be built together. The church is also the body of Christ. But as a body, it should be something living and active. How your body works, right? All the different organs and everything. If only your head worked, nothing else worked, would you consider that? What would you consider that? It's still you, right? But no one would say, "Oh, Hal is so healthy. What a active, vigorous body he has." It's just like, man, how's this guy still alive?
Yeah. All right.
So everyone, we have a body, and Christ has a body, which is the church. He's the head. We're all the different members. So practically, how do we build up the church? Because if we want to build the ark, right, to turn the age, we got to know how to do it. Jesus said, I will build my church. How do you build the church? So we're going to look at a few passages. I get all my important texts while I'm sharing here. It's okay, I'm not going to look at it.
Me too.
Okay, I'm looking at 1 Corinthians Chapter 3. And I'm going to start about verse 9. This is Paul speaking to the Corinthian believers, which is the church in Corinth. He says, we are God's fellow workers. You are God's cultivated land or God's farm, God's building. So he's saying to the believers, on the one hand, there's something growing, organic, and also they are God's building. The two are one and the same. I've never seen a farm that grows a building.
Amen.
But anyway, this is God's building. It's something organic that grows.
Right.
The building is by growth,
Right.
not by doing something, right? And then he says in verse 10, according to the grace of God given to me as a wise master builder, I've laid a foundation, and another builds upon it. But let each man take heed how he builds upon it. So we're talking about the building here. For another foundation no one is able to lay besides that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Christ is the unique foundation. If we try to build something on anything other than Christ, it can never be God's building. We can build it on philosophy, we can build it on good works, we can build it on all kinds of things, right? But ultimately, it has to be built on Christ.
Right.
Christ's person and Christ's work. And then in verse 12 he says, if anyone builds upon the foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, grass, and stubble. Then it goes on to say, eventually there'll be a trial or a test of what kind of work, what kind of materials you've built with. So if Zach got the best wood, and this is all figurative, of course, right? And the test is let's see if it burns. And meanwhile, Stephen gets some gold and some silver and some precious stones. Zach's got this really expensive wood, which is really good. Which one is going to burn?
The wood.
Yeah, Zach. And despite all your good intentions, you just suffer loss. God will not say, "Hey, well, it's the thought that counts, Zach. Good effort. Nice try." I mean, we just want everyone to feel good and happy, right? Whatever you do is fine. You put that, you got that straw and you put it in there. Oh, it looked so nice. Yeah, it burned, but it's okay. We'll accept it. Now, that's not the way it's going to go.
Right.
It's going to be, Zach, outer darkness. Sorry, 1,000 years. We'll talk to you later. But Stephen, it's like, you built the way I want it built.
I would sure hope so.
Yeah. So we need to do things according to the pattern.
Right.
But then Aaron, what's the gold, silver, and precious stone? I could say Aaron or Aaron, or Aaron or Aaron. You want to build with gold and silver and precious stones, right? Because that's the only thing that lasts. The gold signifies God's divine nature. Silver is Christ's redemptive work. And the precious stones are the transforming work of the Spirit. I don't have time to get into all of that. But these are divine materials.
Right.
And they're not acquired miraculously. So it's not like one morning you wake up and, oh, look, a bunch of God's divine natures there. What happens is, well, for instance, there's a verse, we are being transformed from glory to glory by beholding the Lord. So how can we get this transforming work? The transforming work of the Spirit. We have to spend time with the Lord. Every morning. If it's not the morning, every noon. Whatever time. You spend some time in the presence of the Lord. And He shines into you. Moses spent time in the presence of God on the mountain, 40 days. And when he came down, I don't know what it really looked like, but his face was shining. I don't think he just had a big smile. I think there was something. Then he put a veil over his face, eventually because the shining was going away. And he didn't want everyone to know the shining was going away. But in the presence of God for 40 days, he was transfused with something. That even physically there was a manifestation. You spend time with the Lord every morning. I don't care how much. Start out with 5 minutes. Start out with 3 minutes. Every day. And then eventually it'll be 5 minutes. Eventually it'll be 10 minutes. Eventually you'll have a time where it's 3 hours. And it's like, I got to go to class. But I'm in the presence of God, and it's just so enjoyable. You'll have transactions. The Lord will touch things in your being. And you will enjoy something and experience something. And then more of God's nature is deposited into you. Peter says we are partakers of the divine nature. Partaking is like taking something in. So we get these elements into us, and then we become the real building materials. This is the first part. Then, I'm actually not going to go very long tonight. Can you believe that?
No.
No.
Yeah, I know. Come on. Do I want to do those?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to go Ephesians I'm just going to read these verses. This is Ephesians chapter 3, verses 8 through 10. If you want to read a book in the New Testament about the church, Ephesians is the one. This is the highest revelation. But Paul said, to me, less than the least of all saints. Paul's not just being modest. I mean, because anyone who was alive at that time probably never had the occupation of being the ones who was killing the saints physically. When he was Saul, he was persecuting them and putting them to death. So I think it's fair for him to say, I'm less than the least. But was this grace given to announce to the Gentiles the unsearchable riches of Christ as the gospel, and to enlighten all that they may see what the economy of the mystery is, which throughout the ages has been hidden in God, who created all things, in order that now to the rulers and the authorities in the heavenlies, the multifarious wisdom of God might be made known through the church. So this was Paul's commission, this was Paul's burden, this was Paul's vision, is to announce not just the gospel. I mean, I am not against the gospel. You know, people speaking the gospel. That's like step one. So we should share with our friends, we should pray for them, that they could be saved, that they could receive the Lord.
Right.
But that's just the beginning. He could have said, my burden is to announce salvation of Christ to the Gentiles, and I want you all to do the same thing. And people would have said, but the point is, God's economy is to have the church. And through the church, the multifarious wisdom of God can be made known. What does that look like? Well, it looks like this. Just look around the room. We got old people. We got younger old people. It's almost my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Someone asked me how old I'm going to be, and my wife was there. And I thought I answered accurately. And she said, that's not right. And I thought about it, and she's right. I was a year less. But anyway, I was giving my age as a year less. We got students, you guys are like exactly the same background, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. We got people who naturally would just not have anything to do with each other. Sometimes we have there's different countries and different nationalities and stuff who, according to their tradition, hate each other.
Yeah.
I won't say where, but I was a grad student I worked with. He was from somewhere in Europe. And just the nicest, really just a nice guy, really nice guy. But he was from a part of Europe which was very fragmented. And for a long time they'd been forced to kind of be one country. But then time came when they could all break free. And he's like, yeah, I just love everybody, except this one country. He said, I wish I had a bulldozer and I could just push them all into the sea and kill them all. He meant it. So if you could get him and one of these other ones, saved, put them in the same church, it's like, who can do that? Who could? So you get all these ones together, not just in name, not just, oh yeah, I love you. Actually, I hate you. And I don't want to see your face, but I got to say I love you because I'm a Christian. No, I mean, actually, yeah, I love you. I would give up everything for you. I'd give up my life for you because that's what Christ did. And we have that same life in us. Anyway, there's just something testified to the universe, to the principalities, the powers, everyone. The church is God's masterpiece. But then how does this get built up? Okay, we know we got to receive all these divine riches into us. If you look at Ephesians 4, start at verse 11. And he himself gave some, and he himself is the Lord. It says he gave gifts to man. He gave some apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some who are shepherds and teachers. This would be like pastors. What did he give them for? You know what an apostle is? Anybody?
Sent one.
Yeah, I mean sent one. So like Paul was an apostle. And they're ones, they're sent by God. They go out, establish churches, basically just do whatever they're supposed to do. Establish churches, help build up churches, take care of the saints. Then there's apostles, and what's the other thing? And some prophets. Well, we'll get into prophets a little bit later, but we think prophets, it's like I'm going to foretell the future, right? That's not the real meaning of prophesying. The prophet is one who speaks for God and speaks God's forth. Old Testament, if there was a book of Rodrigo, it'd be start out with Rodrigo as a college student, and one day Jehovah appeared to him and said, "Rodrigo, I want you to go to Dinkytown and tell all the sinners there they need to repent." And he'd say, but I'm just, who am I? They won't listen to me. And he'd say, "I'm going to be with you. Just go. Be bold." And then that'd be the first few verses of the book of Rodrigo. But anyway, it's speaking for God.
Right.
Then evangelist. You know what an evangelist is? That's a gospel preacher. And there have been some very, good gospel preachers. It's amazing sometimes how quickly people are forgotten. Because I can talk to people now and it's like, Billy Graham, they're like, who? Is he like a baseball player or something? And, not to mention like people from a century ago or something. Then there are ones, Billy Graham spoke to millions of people, and I think he probably gets credit for, I don't know how many people got saved. He'd have these crusades and thousands of people would get saved. And then they get televised, probably thousands more. I knew one guy, actually I knew two. Well, 1.5. One was watching a crusade, and we went and knocked on his door. We were preaching the gospel, and it's like, wow, you came, I'm just watching this. Another one, he got saved watching it on TV. But I'm sure there's many, many more than just 1.5.
Right.
He's an evangelist, right? And then shepherds, from the Latin word, that's where we get like pastor and teachers. These are kind of one class. It's not necessarily two different things. So isn't it good we got 4 different types of people to do all these things for us? That's our concept.
Right.
It's like, if we're going to have a gospel meeting, let's have a gospel meeting on campus. What's the first thing we need?
Speaker.
We need a speaker. Let's get the best evangelist that we know. And he'll come, and we'll have him for 3 nights, plus a matinee. And we'll invite our friends, and we'll go there. What if he doesn't show up? That happened to us once. We were having a gospel meeting. We invited his brother Dick Taylor. You know Dick.
Yeah.
We're waiting for him. We made a big mistake. Someone was driving him. The person who was driving him had absolutely no sense of direction. And compounded with that, these 2 brothers just knew how to enjoy the Lord. So they're just singing and praying and fellowshipping. Meanwhile, finally this is before cell phones, finally they had to pull over. It's like, where are we? And we're kind of like, are they coming? Get a phone call, and it's like, was there a turnoff we're supposed to, and then where are you? It's like, 3 cities. It's like, yeah, you're about half hour away. And then they had to call again because they got lost again. Eventually they made it, but it was like we had to go without him for a while anyway. Well, the Bible doesn't stop with just, he gave these people to do this. What do they really do? This is really, really not just interesting. This is very important. He gave some, evangelists, some as shepherds and teachers. This is what they're supposed to be doing. He didn't say he gave some evangelists to preach the gospel. The evangelists are going to preach the gospel. They are going to do that. But what they're really supposed to be doing is perfecting the saints unto the work of the ministry, unto the building up of the body of Christ. So let's say, Rodrigo, you're an evangelist. We don't know that yet. But once you grow up a little bit, you've got a burden to share the Lord with your friends. And then it's like, you go out, 27 people get saved. Aaron goes with you, and once every 27 weeks someone gets saved. And it's like, well, is he just a better speaker? No, there's just something. You've got a gift. We recognize this is something from God. But what we don't do is we say, hey, Rodrigo's an evangelist. He's going to do all the speaking. No. You need to train Aaron. He'll never be as good as you. But that's okay. Because he can get better than he is. And Aaron Dahl, he's a prophet. Somehow when he speaks, it's just like the heavens open and there's just something imparted. And Hannah, when she speaks, by the end of her speaking, half the people are asleep. The other half got up to go to the restroom. So Aaron should do all the speaking, right? Aaron needs to perfect us, help us. So we may never be that gifted one, but we can all do better. So you're an evangelist. I'm not saying you're an evangelist. Just imagine. Yeah, you speak the gospel. You share the gospel. But then you spend some time. Perfect us. Help us. So that we can all speak the gospel. If we're going to have a gospel meeting, let's all speak. This way, we get perfected. This is, according to the Bible, this is for the building up of the body. Every member needs to come into function.
Right.
Now some, they might be gifted. Also some are older, more experienced, more mature. I can share like this message. I don't need a lot of preparation. But when I was your age, I'm sweating bullets. And I might be able to share for 3 or 4 minutes. And that's it. There's something, right? Even in the way you speak. It's not just, it's not just a presentation. It's certainly not eloquence. But I got some perfecting. I got some help from some different ones. I've gotten help in the gospel from different ones. So that eventually I can function at a higher level than I used to. So this is what the gifted ones are for, not to do the work instead of us. There was, I've told this story before, probably some of you hadn't heard it, but I think it's okay to mention the name. This is, 20, 25 years ago. I think it's still true. The Southern Baptist is the largest Protestant denomination in the U.S. And they are burdened for the gospel. Praise the Lord, it's wonderful. They had a desire to evangelize the entire country. In other words, to preach the gospel to every single person in the United States. And I think at that time there were like 300 million people in the U.S. And they had, how many? 100,000 members, something like that. I did the math. And Their goal was not to get everyone saved, but just to speak the gospel to every person. You know, according to the math, I think every person would have had to speak to 100 people. That's not that hard, right? I mean, Jenna, if you went, you know, just on campus for 2-3 days, you could talk to 100 people.
I swear I've talked to like 100 people this week.
Yeah. I mean, just, you know, of course some places are, you know, but anyway, and their conclusion was they couldn't do it because they didn't have enough manpower. They had plenty of manpower. But what they were saying is we don't have enough pastors. We don't have enough evangelists. In other words, their view was not, let's train everyone, let's perfect everyone, let's help everyone to function in speaking the gospel. And they just said we can't do it, because then if you shrink it down to 1 out of 200 or 300 or 400 of them, then, you know, it becomes impossible. So that was very, very striking to me. So we need to be perfected so that we can build up. Last point. Oh man. You knew I was lying, right? I didn't know I was lying. But what we want to see is, like, how do you build up the church? I got to get this last one out because this is very important. This is 1 Corinthians Chapter 14, which is one of our favorite chapters in the Bible. And the Corinthian believers were very much into spiritual gifts, even the miraculous gifts, speaking in tongues, healings, things like that. And Paul spent the book putting those things down. It's like, yeah, they're real. They're real. But this is not what builds up the church. So from chapter 14, verse 1, he says, pursue love. That's from the end of chapter 13. And desire earnestly spiritual gifts, but especially that you may prophesy. Now again, we just said prophesying is speaking for God. He talks about speaking in a tongue. You speak to God. No one hears because they can't understand. But verse 3 says, he who prophesies speaks what? Building up. Sometimes it's translated edification. And encouragement and consolation to men. Verse 4. He who speaks in a tongue builds up himself, but he who prophesies, what's he do? He builds up the church. So when we have our Lord's Day worship time, don't think it's a small thing for you to stand up and speak something. This is how the church is built up. There's very little instruction in the New Testament on how to build up the church. We pretty much covered it tonight. But it's all there. You need to get infused with God. Just look at it this way. I spend time with the Lord. I receive something for the Lord. And I speak it to others. And then what happens? You get encouraged. You get consolation. You get building up. Prophesying builds up the church. If one person speaks, so like tonight I'm speaking, it's okay to have that. But if that's all you have, and we don't have the mutual speaking, and so we break into groups, we always encourage everyone to speak. Not just because we're being, inclusive or something like that. No, we want to build up the church.
Yes.
The church is the believers. Even among us as a group, we want the building up.
Right.
So we have to have the prophesying.
Right.
You want to build the ark?
Yes.
Yes.
Prophesy. But not in a strange, funny way. But you go spend some time with even in the Word. I'm just reading my Bible. Wow, there's a verse that just stood out to me. And I share that with someone. Maybe I share it on Sunday morning. Whatever. But that's something the Lord gave me. And, maybe everyone does it. But, Zach hears it. And it's just like, that's, wow. That helped me so much. That was just what I needed to hear. If I don't speak that, he doesn't hear it. He goes home discouraged. He says, God is not real. Well, I hope you wouldn't say that. So, anyway, we'll stop